This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Eliot Clough.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show hosted by me, UNI insider for Town Square Media, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. And, of course, this is on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com, as well as the KOEL app. You can always listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, etc. as well. We've got those guest segments on YouTube too, so wherever you're at, like, subscribe, download, comment, whatever. It's great. Not whatever. It's greatly appreciated wherever you're at, and you can always listen to us on any of our Town Square station apps as well in the Cedar Valley, KCRR, Q98.5, and K92.3. Great show ahead of us today as we've got David Eickholt from 24/7 Sports. He's on to tell us if Iowa has any freaking chance to beat Ohio State this weekend. And then Wyatt Wheeler from the Springfield News-Leader and a sports station down there, 96.9, The Jock, I think. And he's going to be on to preview that UNI versus Missouri State game happening this Saturday, well, today at 4 p.m. in the Dome. And tell us whether or not the UNI defense has any chance of stopping Jason Shelley. The Missouri State Bears, though, they are just 2-4, 4 straight losses. So we'll see how that all comes together. So stick around for all of that. What I want to start off today with is talking about basketball, believe it or not. We just did that on Wednesday. If you missed it, with Kevin Lehman from, he's a college basketball analyst. He's been on ESPN, CBS, etc., former coach at UNI. He was at UNI Basketball Media Day and is a voter for the preseason awards and postseason awards, for that matter, in the Missouri Valley Conference. He joined us to talk a little bit about UNI going into this season, the MVC as a whole, a couple nights before preseason awards came out. And so we have that. That's on any podcasting platform. But what I want to get to today is those preseason awards now that they're out, and we can talk about them freely here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. If you missed my article, delving into some of these preseason awards, first, Drake is placed first by a long shot. 52 of the 54 first place votes in the MVC. They bring back so much talent. We've talked about that before here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Not recently. That was in the spring when Garrett Sturtz and Roman Penn and Darnell Brody all announced that they'd be coming back. I think DJ Wilkins did then too. So 4 really big pieces coming back, as well as a few other talented guys. Bradley received a first place vote, and then Southern Illinois received a first place vote. Then it's Missouri State, then UNI, then Belmont. Number 7, Indiana State, 8, Murray State, 9, Valpo, 10, Illinois State, 11, UIC, and 12, Evansville. Evansville's been in the Missouri Valley Conference for a while, and they're still predicted to be worse than UIC. It's not, it's coaching change, some transfers. I believe in David Ragland. I think he's going to at least make them semi-relevant again, but it's tough to make Evansville a good basketball team. Now, I don't want to talk too much about those preseason placings across the MVC, because who really knows at this point? I mean, who really knows in regards to a lot of things in terms of the preseason awards? But with the conference poll, People, I don't think were factoring in that Austin Fyfe was going to be, well, yeah, they definitely weren't factoring in Austin Fyfe not being around until later on in the season. And who knows what Murray State is. Belmont, kind of a rebuilding year. Missouri State bringing in a ton of transfers. I don't think Southern Illinois is going to be the third spot. I don't think Bradley is going to be in the third spot. Drake, definitely the favorite. I do think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 could be a huge mix-up. Also, Murray State, like I said, ton of transfers, total turnover on the roster. I think they brought one guy back, and Steve Prohm back at Murray to lead the Racers, and I don't want to count out Steve Prohm. Murray State has traditionally been freaking awesome, too, and Belmont's a good program. UNI, could Austin Fyfe come back earlier? What's Trey Campbell going to be like? How about Michael Duax and Landon Wolf? Is Nate Heisey and Titan Anderson, are they going to make that leap? Bowen Bourne, what's he's going to be? So lots of things up in the air. I think Marcus Domask from Illinois is going to have a great season. I think Rank Mast from Bradley is going to have a great season, but it's all super flexible in there. I don't want to say anything definitive other than I think that Drake's going to win the whole thing. Other than that, we didn't get like team defense or awards or all conference defense or newcomers or anything like that. Just straight first, second, third team all conference, which is what pretty much always happens at the beginning of every year for most conferences across the country. First team, Tucker DeVries is going to be the MVP. That was the preseason vote. He's mine too. I mean, the situations between AJ and him going into that second year are pretty similar. There are obviously some differences. That team was a little bit younger for UNI, but well, maybe not. They had Spencer Haldeman and Isaiah Brown. Maybe check that. I don't think Luke McDonald played very much that season, but Drake bringing back a bunch of guys, and Tucker DeVries is very much the dude for that team. So that's the way I see things shaking out. The only discrepancy I really had on the first team was I don't know who Ben Shepherd or what Ben Shepherd's capable of. He's a player for Belmont. And then Ben Crickey is on the first team. He's from Valpo. They never put guys from bad teams on the first team. Antonio Reeves damn near led the conference in scoring last year for Illinois State, and he finished on the second team. So Ben Crickey's not going to be first team. I can tell you that right now. Roman Penn, we'll see. I don't see him as a first team guy. If he scores a little bit more, then yeah, I could see him there, but I see that guy as a second team player. Second team, it's Bowen Bourne is there from UNI, Donovan Clay. I think Clay could be a first team guy. And then Cooper Neese finds himself in there. I see Cooper as more of a third team guy too. Garrett Sturt, second team. I think that's fair. Lance Jones, second team. I could probably see Lance Jones fall into that third team. And Bowen Bourne could very well get first team at this point too, because I think he's going to be the main scorer for the Panthers this season. Then third team, it's Cam Henry from Indiana State, Kobe King from Valpo, Rob Perry from Murray State, Austin Fyfe from UNI, and DJ Wilkins from Drake. Wilkins coming off that injury, so no guarantee what he's going to be. We don't know about Fyfe, if he's even going to be back. I don't know enough about Rob Perry. Kobe King, I mean, he had a year to get back into the groove of things. He was on the all-newcomer team coming from Wisconsin after taking a year off and not playing for Nebraska, and so I think that's very possible for Kobe King to sneak in there, if not be on the fringes. So those are the first, second, and third teams, and my disagreements were with where things landed there. We're talking MVC Preseason Polls here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and at KOEL.com. Now, in terms of where things landed last year and what I expect from some of these guys going into this season, as well as maybe some guys flying under the radar that could sneak into that third team, maybe even that second team from across the valley. We'll do that first. So underrated players that could push for all conference honors. Newcomer stuff's maybe too, but I guess I only have a couple guys that could fall into that category. For all conference honors, names that you might not recognize yet that could sneak into that newcomer team, Goner Ballou who is related to, Omaha Baloo, who just committed to Iowa State. It's his older brother, just transferred from DMAC. He's playing for Bradley this year. I could definitely see him squeezing into a all-conference team. Sardar Calhoun, who's a transfer from Texas Tech and spent time at Florida State, he's joining Drake, so that makes them probably even more lethal. Who knows with these guys, though? Sometimes they're these high-level recruits that go to big schools and don't do anything, and then they expect to be the man when they go to a school like Drake, and it's going to be Tucker DeVries. So we'll see what happens for Drake and Sardar Calhoun there. I'm not going to pronounce this guy's name right until I hear it correctly, but Corvassier McCauley from DePaul is transferring into Indiana State to Paradise, if you will. And DePaul is traditionally a pretty solid program for basketball, so I could see that guy contributing certainly right away. Illinois State and Missouri State both have a bunch of transfers. Missouri State has 4 Power 6 transfers. Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and there was another one in there, but they also have transfers from St. Peter's, Colorado State, Akron, and one who's been there for a while in Hawaii. So lots of newcomer guy possibilities there. Illinois State bringing in 2 guys from Kansas State, Virginia, BYU, Elon, Western Illinois, and App State. So all newcomer team possibilities there. Freshman team. How about freshman of the year? Let's hit that first. I probably don't know enough about the rest of the Missouri Valley Conference and their freshman classes to delve into that too much. I probably don't. And once the season progresses and we get to see some of these young guys, I'll be able to speak to that more. But what I do know is UNI basketball as a UNI insider for Town Square Media. Again, my name's Eliot Clough. You're listening to Cornstalks and Sports Talk. We're talking Missouri Valley Conference. I almost said football. Missouri Valley Conference basketball preseason awards this morning on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL and KOEL.com. But actually, I'm going to backtrack. A couple guys that I think could squeeze into that, maybe third team spot, like I mentioned, Sardar Calhoun. Then there's Darnell Brody, Seton Hall transfer for Drake. He's a big boy. And if Fife can't play at full strength, then Brody could very well dominate the season. No Gage Prim from Missouri State. Loyola gone. I don't really know what the rest of the bigs really look like this season, other than Brody being a big, dominant guy. Jayshon Henry back for Bradley. He was really good when he was healthy. Xavier Bledson from Indiana State. And then, of course, Donovan Clay, who I think he's on second team. I could definitely see him being on first team. I think I already said that, though. And then UNI's Nate Heisey and Titan Anderson could sneak, I think, into that third team. Specifically, well, those two and Bowen are going to be right in there for scoring this season. I think if I had to guess, Bowen would be the leading scorer, followed by Nate, followed by Titan. But what Titan does all over the floor in terms of energy will get folks' attention across the across the conference. And then Nate Heisey's been doing it for a while. He started as a freshman or at least received minutes as a freshman. I wasn't covering the team at that point in time. And his defense is very underrated. He should have been on the all-defense team last year for the Missouri Valley Conference. And assuming health, he's gonna defend the other team's best player again this year. That's going to be a focus for him. He needs to be on that all-defense team. If anything, be competing for the Defensive Player of the Year award too, because, he's just on your hip constantly. I'm really excited to see what he does. For the newcomer/freshman group, again, I don't know a ton of the other guys in the conference, but for the freshmen at UNI, there are 2 that are redshirt freshmen that are going to receive time this year that they didn't last year, and that's Mike Duax and Landon Wolf. Landon Wolf, of course, from Cedar Falls, and his ability to score the basketball is what stands out. He wouldn't tell you that himself. He wouldn't tell me that himself, at least at media day for UNI basketball, but that's what he's really known for on the team, and I'm really excited to see what he can do and fill in that role of sort of that, maybe tertiary 4th, 5th option that Trey Burhow leaves behind. Not that he's probably 3rd behind AJ and Noah last year. At least he wasn't scoring. And then Mike Duax is going to be that second defender for this team, not replacing Tywon Pickford, but he's going to be another athletic guy that I'm really excited to see defend this year, and his athleticism is really impressive to me. And then Trey Campbell. Trey Campbell is my pick to win Freshman of the Year just because we've all seen what he's done and what he is. He's a smooth, calm, collected athlete, and as the season progresses and he gets used to some more physicality and maybe puts on some weight, that's going to be easier for him. But again, I don't know the rest of the conference very well. If the all-freshman team was like it was last year, which it was basically non-existent other than Tucker DeVries, Ege Peksari may very well find himself a spot on the all-freshman team too at this point, because he's just fun to watch, man. I don't know that down the stretch he's going to receive a lot of playing time. That'll be something we see along the way, but I don't think he's going to be on the fringe of the rotation this season and progressively get himself in there as he works on defense. That's what I expect from Ege Peksari. Again, so freaking fun to watch offensively. Looks like he has eyes in the back of his head, the kid from Turkey. And so in regards to other awards around the conference, there's newcomer of the year, freshman of the year, etc. I think the newcomer will be a transfer from one of these big schools in Missouri State, or that went after transfers, that is. Missouri State and maybe Illinois State, depending on how good Illinois State is this season, which I don't think they're going to be very good. Missouri State will be, and they've got some transfers that are going to contribute this season. I think they brought in 7 total, and so they're going to be nasty. Could very well be Sardar Calhoun too. Comeback player of the year. I don't think there is one of those in the MVC, but that would be Jay Sean Henry for sure. Missouri Valley Conference is the most underrated, mid-major conference in the country, I think. Arch Madness is insane. I'm excited to have a huge fan base from Murray State down there this year in St. Louis. Football's a blast. I love covering football, and it's really nice that it's on Saturdays and it's easy to make it to. I won't be able to make it to a lot of the weeknight games for basketball, but I will be watching them on ESPN Plus, etc. And Arch Madness is different, man. There's a different energy in there, and I can't wait. I can't wait to cover the games. We got to get through non-conference and regular season play first, or conference play first. And UNI has a great schedule ahead for their non-conference play, as Coach Jake has addressed a few times. But and that's going to really contribute for an at-large bid if they need it for basketball. I don't necessarily have a real prediction this season for what UNI is going to be at this point. We need to see what they are without Austin Fife, hopefully see what they are with Austin Fife, determine what some of these young guys are in Trey Campbell, Mike Duax, Landon Wolf, and Ege Peksari, and we'll see that soon enough. First 2 games are the one against Dubuque is exhibition, then it's Wartburg, then it's right into the thick of it, playing Richmond at Richmond to start the season. So we're going to find out quick, and they're going to play Virginia while they're out there. That's going to be a punch-in-the-mouth kind of game where it's like, all right, we know what we got to do now to win, or at least it's a reality check at the very least. And so I'm really looking forward to that this season. Basketball is quickly approaching. First game is that exhibition against Dubuque on November 2nd, so we're getting close, folks. I am excited. And I am Eliot Clough, UNI insider for Town Square Media, here with you this Saturday morning on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. Don't go anywhere. David Eickholt joining us up next to preview that Iowa versus Ohio State game and talk a little Hawkeye basketball. Stay right here for more Cornstalks and Sports Talk.
Hawkeyes are coming off a bye week and entering their game this weekend against number 2 Ohio State, where they are 30-point dogs in Columbus. On to talk with us now is David Eickholt of 24/7 Sports here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. David, we were just talking about it a little bit before I hit record. Does Iowa have a chance in hell in this game in Columbus this weekend?
Here's my thing. I just don't think you can logically say it right now. And it's one of the very few games I've completely discounted Iowa out of since I started covering the team back in 2018. Might be the only one. You look at what the offense has done or is not doing. The statistics speak for themselves. I could sit here and rattle off all, how bad they are, but it's on pace to be one of the worst offenses in Power 5 history, to just put it quite bluntly. And I think Iowa's defense is going to do enough to keep it interesting. I think Ohio State scores on the very first drive because Iowa just doesn't do well on first drives. Like, it's almost like when that defense goes up against scripted plays, they just struggle a little bit. But Phil Parker will adjust after. I think Iowa will get at least one turnover. But you know the story. It's the offense cannot move the football. And when we've kind of pressed Brian, we've pressed Kirk about what changes they were going to make during the bye week, they didn't really point out too much. I think Brian did a much better job than Kirk and just saying we need to stop shooting ourselves in the foot, we need to make the makeables and eliminate negative yardage plays. But what specifically are you going to do to eliminate that? And I think that's where fans, I don't think, are going into this game obviously expecting a win. I think people would be thrilled just to see progress. And I know moral victories don't really count in sports, but when your offense is as bad as Iowa's, might be one of those rare cases where if you put up 2 or 3 offensive touchdowns somehow against Ohio State's defense, which is top 10 nationally, you're feeling at least that the season is salvageable to the point where maybe you can get to a bowl game. And it's crazy to me that we're even talking about Iowa potentially missing a bowl game.
I mean, with that defense, it's like what the coaching is doing right now, it's like blasphemy. And what the offense is doing, considering how damn good that defense is. You know, granted, they've let the points rack up against Michigan, but the Iowa offense is clearly not on the field enough to have that be something that you take away as an indictment of the defense. I mean, like, what has to go right for them, go wrong for Ohio State for them to snag a victory? I saw you got that article at the collaboration with your cohort, Sean Bach, previewing the game and keys. I mean, is there anything that can result in a win for Iowa this weekend?
Defensive touchdown. I think when you look at what happened in that 2017 game, and granted, it's in the horseshoe, there's different circumstances, but the first play of scrimmage, Monty Hooker had the pick 6. And I think if you want to give Ryan Day maybe some flashbacks to that game, because remember, Ryan Day was the first-year coach on that staff in that 2017 season, and he's been very public this week about how that loss is kind of scarred him and it's kind of stuck with him. So, you know, the players are not going to be checking out this week, despite it being against Iowa. I think if Iowa can get an early turnover, an early pick 6, I at least think it kind of gives that eerie sort of, okay, is it going to be one of those type of games? But we've seen Ohio State bounce back. I've said it's the best wide receiver room in the history of college football. I think it's up there with 2019 LSU. I think it's up there with Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle at Alabama. But keep in mind, they're doing all this without Jackson Smith and the Jigba, who, by the way, is going to be back tomorrow against Iowa, despite missing most of the season. So if enough things weren't going in Iowa's favor, and this is the stat people need to remember. And I know people almost hate hearing stats at this point, but Jackson Smith and the Jigba, I believe in that Rose Bowl, had 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. The only Iowa wide receiver that had more yards for the whole season was Keegan Johnson, who had like 8 more. So, I mean, it's like, you know, what do we talk about? What do we do? I mean, I think Iowa's going to have to create turnovers. I think the defense and special teams and I'm not even saying that they have to put up points for just to run up the score. I'm saying from a momentum standpoint, I'm saying from, okay, we're showing something here. That's what I mean by that. And to try to rattle Ohio State, because the way you're going to rattle Ohio State, it's not the offense scoring, it's the defense scoring.
Now, in regards to the offense, I've seen some of your updates on Twitter about the health of specifically the wide receiving group. Has that changed at all over the bye week? Anybody healthy? Anybody back for Iowa? I
think Deontay Vines has a chance to play. I wouldn't bank on it, but you know, he hasn't really done anything in Iowa uniform, but based on what I heard behind the scenes for fall camp, he was arguably the standout on the offense. I mean, he was making remarkable catches. You know, Iowa football did a great job, I thought, of showing some of his highlights in fall practice during that portion to kind of give Iowa fans a glimpse. Jacob Bostic, I don't expect to play, the true freshman, and Keegan Johnson's just that's a very interesting situation. Just from me reading the tea leaves, there's rumors that he might not suit up for the year. I don't know. I don't think he suits up for the rest of the year. That's not anything I'm hearing, by the way. That's just me kind of reading between the lines of what coaches are saying. And if that's the case, that's obviously a huge blow to Iowa's offense. And I think Iowa being without Keegan's hurt them this year. I mean, I think he was Iowa's highest upside receiver. Upside's a trigger word, I know, right now for Iowa fans. But, it's any weapon they can get back at this point, even if it's not proven. Like Spencer Petras just needs options. But again, I think you can't really pinpoint one or two issues with this offense. I mean, it's across the board, maybe besides the tight ends, but let's be real. The tight ends have had some drop issues as well. So, there's things obviously that need to be fixed, but I do think that it wouldn't surprise me if Deontay Vines played. Jacob Bostic, I think, still maybe a week or two away from getting back into shape.
Sure. And as you mentioned for Johnson, I mean, at what point do you try to take that medical red shirt and just say, you know what, I don't really see the upside of playing with Spencer. Playing with Spencer Petras at quarterback and just move on to next season. And speaking of which, as we're talking with David Eickholt here on Court Stocks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com about this Iowa-Ohio State game and the Iowa offense. I mean, I know it's getting old at this point. At what point, what does Alex Padilla have to do, or what does have to happen to get him on the field? Is it just a Spencer Petras injury? Is that the only thing that can happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think that has to be clear. I mean, it's been mind-boggling to me that, I don't blame Kirk and Brian for doing this from the standpoint when they're up there and they're asked about Padilla and they said, we have full confidence in. Well, you don't have full confidence in him because Spencer Petras, again, this is with all due respect to Spencer Petras. Okay. He has 3 touchdowns in the past 13 games. He's 3-7 in his past 10 starts. And they say he's given the best chance to win. Okay. That's their assessment. They're there day by day, but they always refer back to practice. Fans don't give a damn about practice. Like if they cared about practice, you should be selling pay-per-view tickets to them so they can watch practice because maybe they'll actually watch touchdowns be scored. Like that's the temperature of the fan base right now. And it's mind-boggling to me that, everybody focused on what's the upside comment from last week. There's one comment to me that was a lot worse than did not get talked about enough. And it was when asked about the mobility factor. And Brian talked about timing, and he talked about that's why Petras is out there because he has better timing with the receivers. And Brian essentially said that once the timing's off, it's backyard football. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm licking my lips, I'm smoking a cigar, I'm cracking a beer because guess what? I get to take the week off because you're telling me all I have to do is disrupt your timing and the play's dead, and you're admitting that the play's dead. Okay. And, we watched a lot of backyard football this past bye week and, 52 points, 49 points against, a top 10 team, 2 top 5 teams, Tennessee and Alabama. Backyard football is modern football now. And I think that this is going to be the most critical offseason, arguably in Kirk Ferentz's career in terms of on the field. Obviously, 2020 was one thing. And if it's not, it's going to be up there with the 2014 season after they went 4-8. And, I think that was where Kirk Ferentz, the temperature around him, people wanted him gone. Then he came back and went 12-2. So, yeah, I know we're speculating about the offseason, but it really is almost to that point because I've said it, if Iowa didn't win the Big Ten West, season's a failure. And I still stand by that.
The Big Ten West is bad. It's not even just bad. It's just like, I can't even comprehend. Wisconsin's bad. Like if Iowa and Wisconsin are bad, the whole thing's just trash. Minnesota had some stretches there, but in regards to this offseason, does Brian Ferentz make it to 2023 with this football team?
No, I just don't see how it's possible. I don't think Iowa fires him. I think he leaves on his own accord.
Really? Even after the look at my kids thing?
I think he meant that from he's going to finish the season out. And then he's going to leave. Again, I don't want to throw out I'm not reporting that. I'm not saying that it's a guaranteed, but I would be surprised. I will be very surprised if Brian Ferentz is on Iowa staff next year.
Okay. And at some point, it's got to be a pride thing, like as far as I think I can do better than this in a different role, or like holding yourself to a standard. It's just weird.
I just don't see how Brian will like maybe move back down to a position coach after this. Like I can't see him doing that at Iowa. I think he's going to go the NFL and be a line coach.
Got it. He did that with the Patriots, right?
He was a tight end coach, I believe, for a year or two.
Okay. Well, that's got to be his best bet at this point. And if he wants to stay in a coordinator position, I'm sure there's a lot of jobs opening in Division III football. So continuing here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk with David Eickholt here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. I know they're just kind of tired of football. So let's talk something a little more positive in basketball. I know you're at Media Day for the men recently, this last week, I believe it was. Thoughts on the outlook of Iowa basketball going into this season? No Jordan Bohannon, no Keegan Murray. What do you think is the ceiling for this Iowa basketball team in 2022?
Well, the offense is going to be good. I think that people are starting to catch on with this team as far as the national radar goes. I think this is going to be a really good basketball team still. I think that has a chance to be better defensively than they were last year. I think Tony Perkins is going to take a step forward and probably be Iowa's best on-ball defender. But, it's interesting when you look at this team. When you look at last year, everybody knew it. Keegan, he was going to be the guy. Obviously, people didn't realize what he was going to do. But there's not, and everybody talks about Chris Murray, and understandably so from a variety of factors. But people need to realize he will not put up the statistics that Keegan did, and it's going to be better for Iowa because Iowa has more proven talent around Chris than when Keegan was the guy. Because we still didn't know what Patrick was going to bring. We didn't know what Tony was going to bring. We didn't know what Peyton Sanford was going to bring. We had an idea about Peyton Sanford. I had an idea about Peyton Sanford. I'm still all in on him. But now you look at this team. Chris is going to average 17, 18 points, 7-8 rebounds. Really, really good. Patrick, I think, is going to average 15. And then you got Tony Perkins, who could take a huge step forward. Peyton Sanford, who could be one of the best shooters in the conference. I think Dasonte Bowen is going to be a very good addition. I'm curious what Philip Abrach is going to do. I think he's going to be a lot more comfortable in his role. But like I said, you just go up and down this lineup. They legitimately go 9 deep. And people are going to laugh at this, but Connor McCaffrey's got his best season ever because this is the first offseason where he's been healthy and been able to fully dedicate himself to basketball. Because remember, he's either been dealing with injuries or he's been baseball. So now he gets to keep his weight at the same level. He gets to just work on his shooting. He gets to do all these other things. Like, this is going to be a very good basketball team. I don't know if they're a Sweet 16 contender. I certainly think that they can make the round of 32. But, I almost hate saying Sweet 16 contender, yada, because, look, it comes down to matchups. Like, you can put yourself in the best possible position, but, once the tournament begins, it's all heck breaks loose. And it's all matchups. It's all luck. Who's healthy, who's hot, who's not, etc. But I think this will be a very, very good basketball team.
My question for you, David, before we let you go, last one, is in regards to the postseason and moving towards the March Madness. What do you think about those folks out there that think maybe it's not a good thing to win the Big Ten tournament right before March Madness?
I think you can make an argument. That's the reality of it. You want to be able to win your Big Ten. You want to win your conference championship. Like, we're not saying that. But look at the Illinois team from 2 years ago. What happened to them? Look what happened to Iowa. Look, Iowa was tired. It's not like Richmond won. I'm not taking any credit away from them. But Iowa was tired after that. And Iowa came into that tournament arguably the hottest team in the country. They were playing, I think, a top 5 level basketball on both ends of the floor. They were playing good defense. They were rebounding. Iowa was 20-0 last season when they out-rebounded their opponents until they played Richmond. Then that moved them to 20-1. So, I think the Big Ten, they're not going to give up that time slot because it's just before the actual bracket announcement from the championship perspective. But the Big Ten eventually, they've been the best basketball conference, I think, collectively over the last, I don't know how many years, or at least in a 20-year span, they've been at least 5 or 6 times the best conference. Still have no national champion. And that's going to keep plaguing them. It's just like Iowa. People, they're turning out draft picks. They're doing all these things right. Haven't been able to get to the Sweet 16.
Quite a ways down the road, but we got you covered here on Cornstalk Sports Talk. David Eickholt joining us here on this Saturday morning. Go give him a follow on Twitter for all Iowa sports. It's at David Eickholt there. David, friend of the show, we appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We got that third and final segment coming up with Wyatt Wheeler from the Springfield News-Leader. We're going to preview that UNI game coming up today at 4 p.m. in the Dome. So stay right here on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com for more Cornstalks and Sports Talk.
UNI football squad bounced back last week with a 41-14 win over Utah Tech. Now they're facing the 5th team of the season, coming off a bye in the Missouri State Bears, another MVFC team with high expectations that has fallen short so far, having lost 4 in a row. On to join us now is Wyatt Wheeler, sports reporter at the Springfield News-Leader and sports host on the Jock in Springfield. Wyatt, thanks for your debut, first of all, here on Cornstalk Sports Talk. What's up with the Bears right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out. I think there's a mixture of bad offensive line play, which will hurt any team, and then injuries on the defensive line and in the secondary have been a kind of a story that's been a little bit under the radar. We all knew going into the year that the offensive line needed to be the thing that stepped up. You had 4 or 5 returning starters, and they just haven't stepped up. They've taken probably a step back when that's kind of unexpected from a group when you think, okay, we can take a step and have that continuity and everything, but it just hasn't come together. Defensive line wise, you've had some defensive tackles when that was a big question. They lost a guy to the NFL from the interior this past year. It looked pretty good there through the first 2 games, but then one of the guys that was Anthony Payne, who is really starting to emerge as a really good player, tore his bicep. So, I mean, he goes out. You have some other injuries at the position. Teams are able to gash them up the middle, run all over them. And then also they've been able to get these deep passes against them through a lot of miscommunication. Their starting safety, who's a captain on the team, has been out. So they expect to get him back this week. But, I mean, just a lot of, little things there. You've allowed the second most sacks in FCS. You've allowed way too many yards through the air and on the ground and can't really get stops. And no matter how good Jason Shelley is, he can't beat a team from his back or be able to go punch for punch when the defense allowing so much.
Yeah, and I've been raving about Jason Shelley for the entirety of the season, and with UNI's struggles, been saying Jason Shelley's going to come into the Dome and carve him up. But we'll talk about that here in a second. Anything schematic wise that's necessarily been a commonality over these last 4 games that the Bears just can't match up with it, or is it mostly those injuries and the lack of solid offensive line play?
Yeah, just the offensive line, just having those struggles. They were just kind of manhandled against Southern Illinois, a little bit manhandled against South Dakota State. Actually played a pretty good game at North Dakota as an offensive line unit. That was more of a defensive problem that day. So maybe those bigger guys, those bigger rush type of guys have been a little overwhelming. Southern Illinois brought in some really good transfer portal guys to load up on that defensive line. South Dakota State's the best team in the country right now in the subdivision, and the Bears just hadn't been able to match up with those guys when you have that offensive line play. I think the more speedier guys, when there need to be more assignment sound, like a North Dakota pass rush might have, not the biggest, but will throw some things at you to give you some different looks. I think that's where they excelled a little bit, but just kind of getting that down. But it didn't matter when defensively they just weren't good. So no, I mean, the defense is capable of being better. I'm interested to see what happens after a bye week with that group when they're a little bit healthier. Of course, not getting Anthony Payne back, but getting healthier on that defensive line, getting your starting safety back, who's one of the better players in the conference, and Kyrie McDonald. And I think it's just they've been beaten by better units along that offensive defensive line that's really set them back.
And in regards to that offensive line play, is it inexperience or are there injuries on that line too?
4 or 5 returning starters, man. I mean, it's you have the experience, and the group just wasn't the best last year. You were able to get by with it, but they just haven't been able to do that this year. And it's been, I mean, there's some good games, whether you point to they were better against UT Martin. You didn't expect them to do too well against Arkansas, but they were able to schematically slow down some pass rush there to where they get Jason on the move and let him do what he's great at. But then when you have a South Dakota State who can just one of the best defensive lines in the country, and then Southern Illinois probably got a better defensive line than we're giving it credit for. Just that unit it hasn't been good enough when 4 or 5 starters. There's 2 guys that were from the transfer portal heading into last season that were plugged in there. And then you have and then the third guy this year just hasn't been the best. That's new to the starting unit because they had some injuries early on in preseason and kind of lost some competition there. So they haven't been able to run the ball like they want to because it hasn't been so good. And they've just had Jason on his back way too often.
Again, we're talking with Wyatt Wheeler from the News-Leader in Springfield. A little bit about the UNI versus Missouri State game here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. So you just mentioned the run game. There are moments where I watched Jacardier Wright, big transfer. He's from Oregon State.
He's from Kansas State.
Kansas State. I don't know where I got Oregon, but Kansas State. And there are just moments where it's like that dude looks like an FBS running back on the field. He's just like a higher level of just size and athleticism compared to a lot of other guys on the floor or on the field. Man, struggling.
Yeah, we're getting there, man. I got some basketball media day stuff today, so I'm surprised I haven't done that either.
Right. But in regards to Jacardier, right? There are moments to me where it's just like, wow, he's on another level. And then there's moments where he's tackled for a 1 yard loss, 2 yard loss. Is that just a reflection again of the offensive line? Are there moments where maybe, I don't want to say he checks out, but after a big run where it's just like, I'm getting the ball again. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think, Jacardier can be a special player. That size and speed is different. And then he also has pretty good hands, which surprises you in that body too. So I think he's a really good player. There's some moments where maybe he stops his feet and the hole isn't there, or there's gets hit in the backfield because of offensive line play. So I don't really know how to assess it too much when the offensive line really hasn't been too good. I don't think he's not a player that really dances a lot and tries to make a big play because he knows what he is. He's a big-bodied running back who's going to run through a guy. But no, I agree with you. I think he can be a really good player in this league. It's just you haven't seen too much of an opportunity for him there to where he's able to get that those open fields. Like, because if he gets the open field, you're scared because that's a big dude. That's taking him one-on-one is something else. So I don't know, man. It's been hard to assess a lot of that just because there's been so much struggles there on the offensive line, and Bobby Petrino's offense is one where you want to see play action and get Jason on the move and throw to some of the better receivers in the FCS. Ty Scott could be an NFL guy someday. I mean, we haven't been able to see Jordan Jones really do what he can do because Jason's had to fixate on Ty Scott because they have that chemistry. Or I really want to see Jahad Booker get going because I think he's a really good receiver. So there's just a lot there that's just like leaves you wanting to see more because that group struggled so much.
And now in regards to how the offense, and I mentioned Jason Shelley and my thinking that he could carve up the UNI defense on Saturday. A big issue for UNI, especially in that game against Illinois State, was getting stops on third down. To be 3rd and 6 plus, and Illinois State would convert every time. 13 of 20 on third down, 2 of 2 on fourth. And what I've said is with Jason Shelley's playmaking ability, that's going to be rough. It's going to be tough to watch for UNI fans. Is that what you expect on Saturday?
Yeah, it's just a matter of what kind of approach they take with them. You've seen a little more spy stuff on Jason in recent weeks, which has worked. Let the defensive line go up against the struggling offensive line and let the spy get them in the open field because the Bears are going to have some 3rd and longs. That's just kind of how it's been this year. They've struggled so much on first down to where they're trying to make up for second down, try to get in a reasonable spot on third down. So a big thing there is just going to be a matter of how Northern Iowa does on first and second down, getting after him to where you get to those third downs. How difficult are they for the Bears? And that's where they've had their struggles. It's just they're having 3rd and longs, and that kills their drives, whether it's penalties because the Bears struggle with penalties and hurting themselves. And then whether it's a sack, whether it's a negative play, and they're having to make up for stuff. And third down, it's too late for some of that. So I would expect to see them spy him a little bit more. Just that it's just been something that's working for a lot of these defenses to try to hold him in check while defensive lines are able to get after the quarterback with no matter how many people they send after. And then make him have to throw the ball instead of using his legs. That's probably the best way for any team to go about it right now. No Jared Brinkman this year, obviously, for UNI, and that's been a struggle for their defensive line, but there's still loads of talent there. Cannon Butler missing experience, but definitely has put in a lot of work. I mean, you got Devin Rice, Caden Hotelling, and Christian Boyd right there on the line for UNI. I mean, you've seen them before. You've seen what they're capable of. Is that a big, piece of anxiety maybe going into this game where it's like, oh, crap, we're going against this defensive line? You always know Northern Iowa's going to have a good defense no matter who's there. I think that's something that the whole Valley has kind of settled on. So yeah, I'm sure. I know that has to give that unit just a. I mean, they're gonna have to step up again, and I would say I'm a little more confident after a bye, able to get away after just 4 weeks. I mean, it's just kind of been a roller coaster. The start of that losing streak, you challenge Arkansas, you're up by 10 in the fourth quarter. That close to pulling off one of the great wins in program history, and then you lay a dud against South Dakota State. You can forgive a loss to South Dakota State. They're number 1 team in the country, but then you go to North Dakota, get whooped, and then you come back home to Southern Illinois and get whooped. And I think the bye came at a right time. They've been focusing on this game for a while, and both teams are going to be desperate. Both teams, 4-loss teams, when it's been a disappointing year for both of them so far. Northern Iowa's kind of turned it around to where they have a slower start, being able to win a few of these. But I mean, both teams are going to need these desperately when they have the losses they do to teams that are going to be fighting for at-larges. So it's a pretty tough one right now.
Couple things for you, Wyatt, before we let you go. Again, we're talking with Wyatt Wheeler from the Springfield News-Leader here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk, previewing UNI versus Missouri State on this Saturday morning on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. Who wins this game and why?
Gosh, it's just been so hard to bet on the Bears these last few weeks. To where I wouldn't be surprised one way or another, as lame as that answer is. But I'd like the Bears after a bye. I just think this group is so talented to let 5 games in a row get away from them. I think there are good people on this team to where they have the right mindset to step up and turn this around. No matter how that looks, whether it's winning out the rest of the year and maybe giving them the chance, I think teams like Youngstown can really bother the Bears because of their running ability. I haven't watched Indiana State yet, but they're scaring teams right now somehow. So I don't know what's going. I haven't watched them yet, so I don't know. But I don't think this is a Bears team that's going to win out just because of how up and down this year's been so far. But I think I think they're too talented enough to not at least make it interesting for a little bit. I don't see it being a dumpster fire the rest of the year, and I think that involves having to win this week. So I think they get it, but wouldn't be surprised if they lose on the road at the UNI Dome. I mean, that would surprise anyone.
Yeah, it's a tough place to play. So we'll see this weekend. Before we let you go, Bolivar senior now, Kyle Polk, just commits to the Panthers. Tell us about Kyle. You've written a couple features on him, just a little ways away from Springfield. What is he going to bring to the Panthers and the UNI basketball program?
Yeah, Bolivar, Missouri is about 30 minutes from here, so he's in my coverage area. And I've gotten to know him pretty well since his sophomore year. Just a great kid is where I start with him. The nicest kid in the world. That comes from a great family. And when the locals wanted him here, the Bears were the first ones to offer. But man, when Northern Iowa started recruiting him, I was just like, yup. I mean, there's not a more perfect fit for this kid than Northern Iowa playing for Ben Jacobson. Because, I've done 3 years of recruiting stories with him. I've gotten to know what exactly he wants, what he wants in a school, what he wants in a basketball program. He's just the smartest kid too. So, he's looking for academics and everything as well. He really appreciates the effort that people put into him and the relationships he builds. And when Ben Jacobson's name popped up as a person that offered him a scholarship because he had a great summer, Mocan Elite, one of the great AAU teams in the country, won the Peach Jam this year. Just his game translates to Northern Iowa so perfectly. Could score at every level. They had some injuries at guard a few years back to where he was being their starting point guard for a little bit. Just this 6'6" kid dribbling up the floor, playmaking, setting up others. Has some great post moves, great mid-range jumper, can hit a three. So I'm incredibly excited for him. I wanted him to be at Missouri State only because I wanted to cover him more, because I really like the kid. But just seeing him at Northern Iowa is going to be great. I think they got a steal there. I think he's going to be a really good player for Northern Iowa, and I can't wait to see what he does in a Panther uniform.
How can we support Art Haynes?
Yeah, you can support Art, of course, for your listeners. Art Haynes is my co-host on Sports Talk, longtime legend in Southwest Missouri, Missouri Valley Conference voice of the Bears for better part of 40 years. West Nile right now, we're trying to get him through that at a good rehab hospital in Lincoln, Nebraska. Hopefully he won't have to watch too much Cornhuskers. But if you want to donate, give a little bit, whatever you can. There's a GoFundMe right now that you can look up on GoFundMe, Help Art Haynes, and it'll be the first one that pops up. I miss him tremendously. I love the guy. There's so many around the league that love the guy. I've never heard a bad thing said about him. So if you could donate to Art, we'd really appreciate it.
That link will be in the description on YouTube and on the podcast, wherever you're listening right now. So go support, donate a little bit. Every bit counts for Art. So Wyatt Wheeler joining us here to preview that Missouri State versus UNI game this weekend. And he's talking a little bit of Kyle Polk too. Wyatt Wheeler is at Wyatt Wheeler _NL on Twitter. Go give him a follow. Wyatt, we appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, we got that link in the description to donate to Art Haynes GoFundMe. Go ahead and do that. Every little bit counts, and it's greatly appreciated by the folks down there in Springfield, Missouri. Once again, folks, my name is Eliot Clough. Thanks so much for tuning in today before games kick off this morning. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, as well as drop comments. That's greatly appreciated. And then additionally, if you missed any part of today's show, you can always tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, the KOEL app, and more. So I'll hopefully see you at 4 p.m. today in the Dome. My name's Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media. And this was another week's episode of Cornstalks and Sports Talk.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.